So, our next panel of today is all about the USB-C problem, simplifying BYOD in the messy world of connectivity. So, we've got three great guests who are going to come on and talk about this with us. So, we've got Nick Miller, Bill O'Donnell, and Tim Albright. Hi, you guys. How are you?
Hello.
Good afternoon.
So I would love it if we can start and just like let you guys introduce yourselves. Nick, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. First of all, my name's Nick Miller. I'm the regional sales manager for Lightware for the South Central United States. I think at Lightware pioneered a lot of the USB-C kind of connectivity that we're all dealing with some of the problems that you just laid out on this intro. So we've got a lot of great knowledge and a lot of training aspects that we're using in the rAVe industry to try to spread some of the knowledge about how to fix some of these problems, not just identify them.
Amazing. Bill.
So, as I say, for me, I am one of the enterprise level telecom support folks. We handle things across both New Brunswick, Newark, and the Camden campuses, and it's been a fun path learning about USB-C, and there'll be some fun stuff that we ended up doing actually with Lightware. So I'll get into that later.
Exciting. Tim, last but not least.
I'm Tim Albright, and I don't know why I'm here. I am the least technical person here. But no, I'm Tim Albright from AV Nation. Covered the industry for a long time and have been fascinated to watch USB, just whatever letter, USB evolve into a video standard, which I would have lost a bet 10 years ago if somebody would have asked me.
Yeah, so you're here because you have a really, really good fingerprint on the trends that are up and coming and the things that are taking over in AV. So you were here for a very good reason, let me assure you. So, Nick, I'd love to ask you the first question. So,
Sure.
As we've kind of talked about / the audience here probably knows, USB-C was not originally designed for rAVe workflows, but adoption is growing and quite rapidly. So, from your perspective, what do you think is driving that adoption, and what do you think is making it so appealing for these professional environments?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think from a physical connectivity standpoint, it's being driven by everything. And when I say everything, full featured, right? So audio, video, USB data, Ethernet, and maybe the most important part, charging, all being over one cable, right? So in a perfect world, that sounds like an ideal setup, for any sort of classroom, boardroom, any professional AV, situation, right? We've had to catch up to how to integrate that, right? But I think there's a huge appeal to having a single cable and maybe walking around your facility and not having to carry a charger, for example, and just plug in your laptop and go. As that's been driven, obviously, Apple was a huge domino to sort of fall, right? For them, actually, talking about losing a bet, Tim, I would have never guessed that Apple would standardize on USB-C. I don't know that they had a choice, but they did. And then PCs, as well, are now almost all, right? Professional laptops, PCs, and Macs now have some sort of USB-C connection on them.
Absolutely. So, Tim, I'm interested in picking on you next. Why do you think USB-C has taken time to gain traction in rAVe? Because, this was for all intents and purposes, a very consumer standard.
Mm-hmm.
What has changed, do you think, to make it more viable for professional deployments now?
Nick hit it on the head. It's that single cable. 25 years ago, almost 30 years ago now, HDMI came out as the first kind of the HDMI and DVI, but HDMI more so on the digital video side, right? And that was 100% a consumer product. But you had probe manufacturers that were incorporating it because their customers were asking for it. Same thing here. You've got customers asking for USB-C. Bill represents Rutgers. You have a large higher education contingent asking for it. You have corporate America asking for it because their IT departments and their support infrastructure is saying, oh, hey, look, it's one cable that can give us, as Nick said, power, It can give us audio, it can give us video, and it can share everything there. Whereas again, I wasn't kidding. The old USBs, I would have lost a bet about, oh, this is going to be eventually carrying video. No, it wasn't, right? No, absolutely not. But here we are, and it is that simplicity.
Absolutely. And Bill, you mentioned earlier that this is even becoming a staple in higher ed spaces. So what adjustments did you need to make in designs or processes in order to support the way that this fits effectively on campus?
So one of the biggest things that we've done is always having to check the specs. Like specifically when we've been ordering, whether it's Dell room PCs or it's a Zoom room on Windows PC, we've had to go through and make sure, oh, for the sake of kind of simplifying our installs and kind of streamlining things, we always have to check when they go, oh, it has a USB-C port. Great. Does it carry, is it 3.1? Does it carry power? Does it carry, and this is the magic words here. We always go, is it able to do DisplayPort alt mode? And usually if you talk to some folks, they will look and go, huh? And that is like an easy tip off. But for us, like I always had to look at the specs. And once we worked it out with, with Dell, with HP, it was actually, we were able to streamline a lot of stuff. Also, I won't, Nick, I'll give you guys some credit and everything. Your engineers actually kind of tipped us off to a few other little tips and trades in terms of when everyone looks at, oh yeah, here, it's just USB-C. Okay, you also have to, the other thing that causes us to look at everything is how many USB hops or tiers you're allowed. Because some extenders are go, oh yeah, sure, here you go. And then you plug it in and then it goes into another switcher. And, oh, here, I added a dock. Oh, that shouldn't be that big of a deal. Oh, it's not working. Well, if you look through a program, they'll tell you how many hops. The biggest thing we've had to check is how many tiers or hops do some of these extenders add.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been such a growing pain. But we're getting there with everything. And thankfully, a couple other manufacturers have actually said, here, we have a built-in extender. It'll be a point-to-point, 10 gig extension, but it doesn't eat up an additional hop with everything, which
Right.
When you hear all that, you go, oh, this doesn't seem so bad until you have a switcher that goes from behind the display down through the cabling, up into the conference room table, to a dock. And like I said, one extra connector can suddenly go from, oh, this is amazing, to this whole room is terrible. What's going on? Yeah.
Nick, kind of jumping off of that, when integrating USB-C into ProAV systems, what are some of the key technical considerations here? So we've got distance, we've got power delivery, signal type. What all needs to be addressed to ensure that this technology works seamlessly?
Yeah, it's the hop count thing is enormous, right? Bill really nailed it, and it's the big secret, right? Unfortunately, we're trying to spread that information as much as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
We want these installs to go well because, as Bill talked about, USB-C integrated correctly can actually be a really useful and helpful, and a lot of times simplify a user's experience with an AV system, right? Because of that single cable. Done incorrectly or with even just one extra tier, that last thing that you plug in makes the whole thing stop working. And that's a difficult thing to explain to someone, is that, everything worked until I plugged this in and then it stopped working, right? Tough one to explain. So hop count is huge. We're pushing with, for example, with Lightwear, all of our Taurus gear, which is USB-C enabled equipment, is all 2 tiers, right? Or 2 hops. We did that for a very specific reason. One, it's less than 3, right? And 2, we wanted it to be simple, and so that everybody always knew what they were getting. One of the big problems is that those tier counts and hop counts are not that available as far as researching equipment. When you go online, for example, it's not it's not going to be on the top of the web page, really kind of in bold letters, but it may be the most important part of the whole thing, right? So I would say number 1, tier count. And then number 2 would be what's actually traveling across that USB-C cable, right? That USB-C physical connection is the only thing that makes that a USB-C cable, right? Not what's running over it. That's why there's $5 USB-C cables on Amazon and $500 ones. So The knowing what your cable is passing and if it's full featured or not is probably our number one support phone call, which is, hey, this doesn't work. And we say, what's plugged into it? Is it the cable that came with it, or is it a different cable that you got somewhere else? And the answer is usually the latter.
Right. Tim, if you look at some industry adoption trends from the past, do you think that USB-C will potentially become the default standard for BYOD spaces, or do you think that this is going to kind of be an option, but a great option for the foreseeable future?
I'll split the middle here. I think it will become the default standard among several options. And here's what I mean by that. I have an old dear friend that Bill knows, Bradford used to work for, a manufacturer in the industry. And when the digital transition was happening and when we were bringing in HDMI and we were saying, toss out the VGA, many manufacturers were still putting VGAs on the back of their machines up until 2015, 2016. I think even 2020, you could buy something with a VGA. And I asked the question, I said, why are you doing that? We're in the middle of a digital transition. The analog sunset has happened. And he's like, because customers are asking, and because we are all coin operated in some way, shape, or form. If a customer is still asking for a connection point, then we're going to provide that. So manufacturers will still provide DVI, they'll still provide HDMI, but USB-C is absolutely going to become the default and the majority used connection point.
Had a question come in from the audience, so this is for whoever wants to take this. Is all USB-C capable of handling HDMI audio and video quality?
No. No.
Nope. It's probably the biggest problem that we have. Again, cable it all starts with the cable, right? So no, absolutely not. And some may just do a small amount of charging. For example, that little white one that comes with your iPhone would be one of them.
Great. I wish for the social team who was watching, I would love it if y'all pulled the clip of everyone going, no. So, Bill, in your environment, what's been the biggest lesson learned about making USB-C user-friendly in spaces where people are obviously using a huge variety of different types of devices?
So the biggest thing I've ever kind of hammered down with folks is if they go, oh yeah, well, it can totally do that. And I'm going, what do you use your device for? Is the USB-C port for charging, or have you actually used this to plug into a display or another device or anything like that? If the most I ever hear is, oh, it's just for charging, I go, let's look at a different transport medium, because last thing I want to do is go and say, oh yeah, sure. And then next thing you know, this goes up to a C-level executive who says, well, we heard from so-and-so that this worked fine. Yeah. The other quick thing I just wanted to put in is just looking from a manufacturer perspective, a number of your, I'm going to say collaboration manufacturers, whether it's Neat, Poly, D10, whomever. Some of them have gotten a bit smarter about things, Cisco included, in which a number of those devices, there is a USB-C port on them. But only to my knowledge, I know Cisco and I know Neat on a couple of their products have actually made it where the USB-C port is an all-in-one connection. Not throwing shade at other folks. In some cases, it's just here we decided to put this much money into this gen product. We'll probably do it for the next gen. But, in our case, we joke around, Cisco put it on there. I think they almost put it on there of just here, now you have it. Will you leave us alone? And we're like, cool. Can you have it in all-in-one? They went, yes, fine, here. So just putting it out there. It's a slow adoption thing.
For sure. And you guys kind of answered this already, but in mixed signal environments, so we got HDMI, we got DisplayPort, we got USB-C all at the same table sometimes. What is all of your best advice for ensuring every device kind of connects as smooth as it can?
Okay, so I'll start. Number one is nobody else wants to start. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is what Bill said. Is what's the use case, right? What are you trying to do with it? Are you trying to just charge? Are you trying to display and pass audio and video down the pipeline. Good Lord, 20 years ago now, was the first time I ever saw one of these dongle rings, right? Where and you know, it had several different, you know, adapters and stuff like that. Those aren't going to go away, and I'm terribly sorry to say that, but they are not going to go away because you've got legacy equipment, because you have legacy connections. So making sure that everybody has the ability to connect. And the other part of that is everybody has a different refresh cycle, a different refresh rate. When I worked in higher education, because I worked in the state of Illinois and we had no money, our refresh cycle was 10 years, right? When I had colleagues that worked, I don't know, at Boston College, and their refresh cycle was 3 years. So, you know, those legacy gear is going to be around. So you got to make sure that you have connectivity regardless of what somebody brings in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we provide folks, usually by standard, we have an HDMI and a USB, and then we provide the folks with a USB-C dock that we know works, which, you know, it's weird that I have to say that, but once again, and you guys know this as well as I do, and Tim, you know this just as much from your higher ed days. We do have some faculty who have very finite terminal degrees, and they're brilliant folks. They're incredibly smart folks. They are also the same types who are, I know this much. I know if I come into the room and press this button, it does this. We refer to them as digital immigrants. They know enough, whereas, you know, my generation is used to, you know, yeah, here, everything's on a touchscreen. I'm used to this, whatever. We provide that kind of backward support because, once again, and I will say this left and right, no one is coming to my school just because, oh yeah, we have seamless connectivity for our classrooms. No, folks are coming in because the faculty can come in, plug in, do their job, and they have one less thing to hold them up and to teach their classes. So that's my soapbox. I'm done.
No, and you know, Bill, I think you make a really good point. The one thing I would add to that, we focus a lot on what we call room automation, right? Which is we want, it sounds ridiculous as well, but we want this room to do what you think it should do, right? Meaning if you're going to plug in a cable, for example, with Cisco, right? We integrate with Cisco so that if you plug in a USB-C cable at the table and there is a meeting already going, right? It's not going to take over that meeting. It's going to give you an option of, do you want to share your content, or do you want to make a separate BYOD or BYOM call, right? The same thing can be done with auto switching, et cetera. So the idea for us to make it seamless is for your, you know, person that maybe struggles with technology in some of these ways, who's brilliant in other ways. When they grab that cable, we've put a little thought into what's going to happen so that they can't make too large of a mistake, hopefully.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So how do extenders, adapters, switchers fit into making USB-C practical for ProAV today? And you guys have already touched on this, but I think it will probably be good to just kind of hammer that home again. And how do you see these solutions evolving even over the next few years? Whoever wants to take that first again is works for me.
Sure, I'll jump into it. So we have a few different options in that sense, but you know, extension is one of the larger problems I probably deal with on a day-to-day basis, right? Mm-hmm. It may be that someone says, well, I just want a really long USB-C cable. Can't I just have that, right? Or it may be that being plenum rated, right? Is that USB-C cable plenum rated? It can be a major problem. Wall plates, for example, can be a real issue with USB-C. Anytime you take a USB-C and plug it into any sort of coupling type of mechanism, you're inherently going to have issues, right? So Bill touched on 10 gig, right? Our solutions are 10 gig, right? And so that'll get you, we can extend 100 meters, but it is 10 gig, and that's a lot of bandwidth. There's a lot going on in that signal, right? So you need a lot of bandwidth. You need to make sure you're using the right cabling, shielded Cat6a cabling, because it truly is 10 gig. In the old days, manufacturers used to say, use Cat6a shielded, and you didn't really need it. Well, for this, you really do need it. Right? We're filling that whole pipe up with information to make sure that this thing works. And so those are some of the kind of pitfalls and gotchas. The good news is we've got them now. We do have extension products. They do work. They work with high-end USB peripheral devices and cameras. They have the bandwidth to do it, but it did take a little bit of time to get there.
So just piggybacking off of what Nick said, every now and then, and I laugh. We have this one client who they got a wonderful conference room table. Everything was clean and nice, and they looked at me and they went, "So we want to have like this clean line look." And I said, "Oh, you want it to be like the Apple Store?" They're like, "Yeah." I went, "Oh, okay, great. How much do you want to spend?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, we have an HDMI extender and we have a USB extender that then goes into a dock." They're like, "Yeah, we can't just get an extension cable." I said, "I could." That's then adding an additional point of failure, which once again goes back to, oh, does this involve a USB hop or anything like that? Now, I don't go down that rabbit hole with the end users because they'll hear hops and they're like, "I don't care. I just want it to work." So I tell them, all right, if you want a streamlined, simplified solution, how much is this worth to you? And they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I thought it'd be like a $20 thing." And I went, "No, it's a $1,500 to $2,000 thing." And they're like, and I went, "You want the single point extension point to point. We are still at like there is so much data and video, audio, everything else being put through that." I'm like, it's still going to cost you. Now I'm not going to say what Nick's solutions are and everything, but I will say that to do these things and to have that one clean look, it's doable. I just tell folks, I'm like, listen, I can build you the Ferrari. I can strip it down to the Tercel. It all depends on what model you want to do. By the way, I know where that dates me, but still.
It dates you very, very far, but thanks.
Yes. Yeah, fine. Yaris. There you go. But like I said, it's one of those things of, I get it. Folks want to have a clean aesthetic look. I came from before higher ed, I was in the Department of Defense. So yeah. I am in more of the mindset of it has to work. It may not look pretty, but it will work. Now in higher ed, and when it comes to like private offices, folks are like, "Well, we want to, Bill, we want to do this on this table." Cool. This table was never designed for AV. We'll make it work anyway. Okay. How much money do you want to spend? There we go.
You ask that question a lot.
Yeah.
Tim, anything to add here?
On this one, no. These two are the smart ones here.
They got it.
I'm SMRT smart.
So if you guys could give one best practice to an integrator designing a BYOD space with USB-C in mind, what would it be? And again, this is to all three of you, whoever would like to take that first can.
Sure, I'll jump into it. I would say full featured is very important. Making sure that the components that you are using are full featured. I would also say that there are a lot of very commoditized USB devices out there, right? That weren't ever designed for the Pro AV industry, and probably avoiding those types of additions to a system would be helpful, right? That's kind of the whole reason Lightware started, the Taurus products with USB-C, was we wanted to eliminate as many of those add-on kind of products that you might get on Amazon, when you're on your way to the job site, just the $15 USB hubs and some of those points of failures that we used to just put in because they were afterthoughts. They were miscellaneous materials, right? But there are options now, right, for professional AV grade pieces of equipment that you can integrate, and they will make your life much, much easier.
I would actually echo what Nick's saying, and I would default to full featured. Default to full featured in your design, default to full featured in your proposal. And not that any integrator wants to hear this, but as your value engineering, if that is a thing that you do, and it is something that they all do, then you can start rolling those back based on what the client's telling you, right? But start with full featured, default to that. That way, in a year or 2 years or 5 years, as the client is evolving into using and leveraging USB-C, they don't have to come back to you, or worst case, go to your competitors and go, these guys didn't know what they were doing. You come in here and give me what I needed.
Yeah.
I write it up as whenever we design, whenever we advocate for these things, it's almost like if this was like a harbor and you go, oh, we have to dredge the canal. Well, that's really expensive. Yeah, but bigger ships are going to be coming through sooner than later. Please go do this. That's really expensive. Yes, on the back end, you will thank us 1,000% later when you go, oh, I didn't know we could do all this.
Right. So we had a question come in from the audience, and this one is from Mark Coxon, and he's asking, it's actually very interesting what he's asking. How hard would it be to get the licensing board for USB-C to create a universal color code that they enforce? So for instance, full featured's red, charging's green, DisplayPort blue, etc.
We have actually talked about doing this. This is not a pie in the sky thing. This has been talked about internally. What we have clients doing currently, because we haven't fully gone this route, is we have what we call CPOPs. They're little pop-ups for USB-C cables, and the tops of them are interchangeable, right? So we'll have clients that will line the table with them, and they'll have one at each end that is labeled for AV, and then the rest of them will be labeled for charging only, right? So the idea is there. It's not exactly what Mark is saying, but it's totally valid, and we have actually had many of those conversations internally at Lightwear.
So what Nick is saying is that's the fastest way to do it. What to get what Mark is asking, it's not quite a movement of Congress, but it's really close. And the reason for that is that you've got a volunteer body to come together and to agree on a certain set of standards. I think that going the route of leveraging manufacturers and leveraging their standards, I think is going to get you faster than waiting on that body.
So how do you all think, in your opinions, how can integrators best plan for USB-C now, while also kind of being mindful about the connection standards that are all out there and ones that might come in the future?
Yeah, I think that, at this point, keeping an eye on information that's coming out, sort of futures on PC connectivity, for example. We've kind of gathered a lot of data through Lenovo, through Dell, about what their next year, end of 2026, looks like from a connectivity standpoint. And there's some really interesting information, right? A lot of it has to do with, for example, over $300 laptops. The estimation is that 90-some-ish% will have a USB-C connection, and that by the end of 2026, potentially less than 50% will have an HDMI connection, right? So the latter part of that is really the most important part, which is that, and Tim talked about this with VGA because it's really similar. It's very similar, this whole kind of sunset, quote unquote, is that you need to prepare for the future, not completely destroy the past, right? And having a wired option, in my opinion, is just always good. Wireless is great, but having some sort of wired option is always good. So I think at this point, with the amount of USB-C connections on laptops, just having that wired option is the best way that you can future-proof. And again, with our stuff, we don't need, all of our boxes still have HDMI on them, right? And that's for a reason, because you still probably need that. We don't want to get rid of it. It's not, the industry isn't asking for that yet.
Right.
Right now, it's kind of a both thing, and I think that's the best way you can future-proof.
Bill?
What? Oh. No, it's fine. No, if anything, as far as future-proofing, I just tell everyone, listen, plan for bandwidth, plan for the best way I can tell everyone, and this is how we've been viewing things, is we try to plan for in-room 10 gig. Full disclosure, we've been using the TPX systems in a number of our rooms, and there's been a little bit of a learning curve, but it's nothing earth-shattering. But once we get into it, it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Are we using all 10 gigs? No, not yet, but at some point we will. I have no doubts about that, especially when the end user figures out, oh, wait, you mean we can have a Zoom room and we can have multiple cameras going through this at the back end and then have a confidence monitor in the back? We can do all that? And I'm like, yeah, we've built this in on the backside to begin with. So that's where most of our focus has been on that, and also learning how to terminate Cat 6A shielded.
No, thank you. What Nick said there about paying attention to what the laptop manufacturers are doing, I would echo that and say also pay attention to what the consumer electronics, not that laptops aren't, but even further down consumer electronics manufacturers are doing, because increasingly you can bring in a cell phone, a tablet, or whatever, and that connectivity is also going to become even more important because you can do presentations straight from an Android device or an iPhone or any sort of tablet. So pay attention to what the laptop manufacturers are doing as well as what the consumer electronics folks are doing.
Absolutely. Well, I think that is just about all the time we have. So I'd love if we could all go around and you all could give me some, final closing thoughts to give the audience, as well as where people can contact you or find more information on the internet. Nick, do you want to start?
Sure. Yep. You can find me on LinkedIn. Lightware.com is obviously our website. I think if this, if you get anything from this, it's that Lightware, for whatever reason, sort of invested in USB-C, I think before anybody else did. And because of that, we've got, the most products and I think the most, technical knowledge and know-how. So hopefully if you think USB-C, you think Lightware, and reach out to us because we're here to help.
Perfect. Bill?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I would advocate for anyone, if they really want to go down into this, kind of echo Nick there. Lightware actually has been doing a USB-C classes online. I highly encourage everyone to go check those out, mostly because, once again, I didn't know about the USB-C hops until all of a sudden, I opened up a certain app that, was able to say, oh yeah, here, you're sitting on 6 hops just doing this. And it's like, it was an eye opener. Anyway, I just advocate for everyone, please take those classes. It will save you a lot of grumbling, cursing, and screaming and unfathomable language later.
Perfect. Tim?
After that, I got nothing. Just generically, just keep educating yourself. Really, I mean, this is just the next iteration. We've talked about VGA and and HDMI. This is the next generation of that. So, us old folks, this is our migration from VGA into HDMI. Just accept it; it's coming. For me, you can hit me up, connect with me on LinkedIn, or find me at avnation.tv.
Perfect. Well, I think that is all the time we have. So thank you guys so much for coming on and doing this, and special thank you to Lightware for being part of this today.